Hi everyone and welcome. This is the second class for the balance series. So this one is basically focused on centering yourself. So essentially this class is, there's an invitation to focus on your center. So yeah, you might like to incorporate a lot of visualization within this practice. All invitational once again, but yeah, you might like to think about visualizing your center when you're in certain poses. And center doesn't necessarily mean the center as the torso. It could be center points within your legs, center points within your feet, center points within your hands. Just channeling, sorry, that's a big word for my mouth clearly today. Channeling the points that run through your energy in your body that help to find your center and your ground. Because essentially, yeah, a lot of balance work is about feeling centered and feeling balanced. So, okay, with that being said, we're going to start in Supta Baddha Konasana in butterfly pose today. So you might like to have some blocks for this. You're going to need some props anyway for this class because there will be a couple of leg lifts that we're going to do. It doesn't have to be blocks, it can just be any sort of prop, but something with a bit of height on it. So when you're ready, come to extend the legs long to begin with and then lay all the way down, having the blocks out on the outside if you're going to use them, and then come to bend the knees, plant the feet onto towards the mat, bringing the feet to touch, and then come to send the knees out towards the side so they're coming down towards the mat, and then the soles of the feet are coming to meet. And just noticing the setup here, does that feel comfortable for you or uncomfortable for any reason? If it does, maybe use the trusty blocks to help hold the hips up, or maybe you take the feet a little bit further away from you or closer towards you to find a setup that works for you. And then maybe the hands are on the body or off the body, and come to close down the eyes or take a soft gaze if it is there for you today. And once you've come to settle into your reclined butterfly, just coming to notice the connective points of the body. Maybe noticing the shoulders, maybe you tuck them underneath you or pull them out from underneath you to see if that helps you to feel a little bit more settled in within this pose. Maybe you explore with facing the palms down or facing the palms up, and noticing how that feels. And then coming to focus on the breath. Allowing the breath to flow in and out of the body naturally, fluidly, not changing anything or forcing anything. And then the invitation is to just simply stay with observing the breath coming in or out. Or maybe you might like to explore with visualization of the breath. So coming to visualize the breath as it comes in and out through the heart center to begin with. So as you're inhaling, the heart center is inhaling, and as you're exhaling, your heart center is exhaling. Imagining the breath flowing in and out through this part of the body. And then maybe extending that energy flow of breath within the body. Sending the breath outwards. Maybe the breath is traveling down the arms, across the shoulders, up the neck, into the head. Maybe the flow of breath is then turning back around and flowing into the torso, into the hips, into the legs, and the ankles, and the feet. Allowing the breath, the inhale and the exhale to travel around the body, making it expansive, expanding and relaxing. With each breath. And then coming to, if you are still there with the visualization, just come to focus your attention back on the heart center, on the flow of breath in and out through your heart center. And then if you've closed down the eyes, come in to gently open up the eyes nice and slowly. And bring in some awareness to the body. And if you have props underneath the hips, coming to remove the props. And start to think about finding some activity into the legs. So start to bring, so as if you're pressing palms together, start to press your feet together. And as you're pushing your feet to one another together, you'll find a sense of the hips might lift, the knees might lift, and a sense of engagement on the outside of the legs. And then release this, come to soften, and allow the legs to soften back down. And take that a few more times, pushing into the feet, surrounding a sense of activity through the legs. Pushing toes into one another, the heel into one another, and then softening. And taking that one more go, pushing the feet into one another, finding that sense of engagement. And then coming down to soften, allow the legs to soften. Bring the hands beside the body, palms are facing towards one another. Start to bring that sense of engagement into the legs one more time by pushing the feet into one another. And then very gently lift the hips up as if someone was trying to slide a piece of paper underneath your hips. Find a sense of engagement through the glutes and a little bit through the front of the hip flexors there. And then lower back down. And soften. I'm going to take that 2 more times, pushing into the feet, find that sense of engagement, come to lift the hips up ever so slightly, and then come to lower them back down, and come to soften. And taking that 1 more time, pushing the feet into one another, find that sense of engagement, lift the hips up. Maybe you notice this time you lift a little bit higher, and then lower them back down, come to soften. And then come to maybe bring the hands beside the back of the thighs, and allowing them to gently assist the legs as the knees come into one another. Taking the feet out as wide as the mat, allowing the knees to knock into one another for a round of inhale and exhale in restorative pose. On your next breath, coming to walk the feet in so that the feet are underneath the knees and the hips, the legs are about hip width apart. I'm coming to settle up for bridge here. So bring the hands beside the body, palms might be facing down. Maybe you shuffle the butt towards the heels a little bit further. Come to firm in towards the feet, in towards the toes, in towards the heels. Start to find that tuck of the tailbone under. Maybe draw the chin slightly in towards the chest to find some length through the neck as you lift the hips up towards the sky. If you're noticing that the knees are splaying out, try to draw them back in towards one another. And if you want a sense of feedback, maybe you use that block to find that squeeze and that drawing of one another into each other, into the center line. And then lowering back down. And then on your next breath, we're going to take that a few more times. But this time you might like to incorporate the arms in. So as you lift the hips up, maybe the arms come up behind you, fingertips reaching towards the back of the room. Lowering the hips down, the hands come down with it. So undulating the arms with the hips lifting in bridge. Moving with your breath, maybe inhaling to come up, exhaling to come down. Or maybe it's an inhale and exhale on each move. Utilising your breath to guide you. Taking a few more rounds here. Taking one more round where you are. And when the hips have settled back down again, draw the knees in towards the chest. The legs a little squeeze towards the body, maybe a little rock side to side. You're going to come up to find a seat. You can either roll off to one side and come up to find a seat, or you can bring the hands behind the back of the thighs, just behind the back of the knees, and start to rock backwards and forwards, sending the legs over the top of your head as you rock up to a seat. And when you found yourself on your sit bones, you're going to find yourself in the middle of the mat. Finding your prop, your block, having that close by, or whatever prop you're using. Like I said, we're going to do a few leg lifts here, so it doesn't essentially need to be a block, it can be a book. But we're coming to place that on its lowest edge in the middle of the legs, in the middle of your mat. And then bring the hands to the outside of the thighs. Coming to find a nice long spine. So thinking of that centre, thinking of drawing the sit bones down towards the mat, maybe drawing navel in towards the spine, gaze is forward. And then think about finding that energy up through the leg, pointing the right toes, or maybe flexing the right foot, finding a sense of engagement through the legs first. On your next breath, we're going to lift the leg over the top of the block, bringing it to the other side. I'm taking that 3 more times. Using the breath to guide you, moving as slowly and mindfully as you can. And then tuning into that awareness of the centre body. So when I say centre, that just means potentially thinking about your hip all the way down to your toes. Where is that energy coming from? Beautiful. And then allowing that leg to soften, maybe giving it a little shimmy and a shake before coming over to the other side. So bring the hands back on the outside of the body, finding that flex of the left foot or the point of the left toes, and then coming to lift and lower over the top of the block. Taking a few rounds here. We've done 4 on the other side. Feel free to do 4 or feel free to do 3. Just listening to whatever is calling to you. Beautiful. When you've done your final round, just coming to give the legs a little wiggle, removing the block, and then coming to turn the body so that we're now facing the mat. Coming to find a Sphinx pose. So with Sphinx pose, taking the legs out nice and wide, so maybe the feet are as wide as the mat. And then the elbows are coming underneath the shoulders or thereabouts. And just explore with taking the arms out a little bit wider or bringing them quite close in towards the body. And see what that does, maybe for your lower back, for your stomach. And then we're drawing the chest through. Gaze is coming forward, but slight tuck of the chin, so we're not throwing our head all the way back. We're gazing forward. Taking a few rounds of breath here. And then on your next breath, start to push the pubic bone in towards the mat. Find a sense of squeezing the glutes. We're going to reach the right hand forward. So right hand comes forward, and then the right hand comes back in towards us. Firming into that right elbow, reach the left hand forward and left hand back in. And just come to notice what there is to notice here. So we're going to move one more time like this. with awareness. So just noticing where is that coming from, that movement. Are you having to twist to get there? Are you compensating anywhere? Not attaching any judgment to it, just simply observing. Maybe it means that if you are twisting, you're not reaching as far forward as you was previously. So extending the right, and then coming to bring it back, and then extending the left, and then coming to bring it back. Taking a round of breath here. On your next breath, coming to draw the legs back into one another. Come to tuck the toes under. Start to draw the chin in towards the chest. And then slowly start to lift the hips up ever so slightly so that the thighs are starting to peel off of the mat. And when you feel like you've come horizontal towards the mat, maybe you lift the right knee and then the left knee, finding yourself in a forearm plank. Maybe the knees stay down. Taking a round of breath here. Coming to lower the knees down if they're not already. And coming to find Sphinx. And taking a round of breath again. Coming to tuck the toes. Coming to bring the chin in towards the chest ever so slightly as the stomach starts to lift, thigh starts to lift, and then the knees might lift. Really pushing into the forearms, into the elbows, doming through the upper back. Think about switching on the legs, maybe squeezing through the glutes. Coming to lower the knees down and then sending the hips back for a variation of child's pose. Hips might be slightly elevated in the air here, the forearms down towards the mat. Taking a round of breath. Slowly start to walk the hands in towards the body, coming to find a seat over the top of the thighs. Heels, sorry. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, coming to walk the hands out, coming to find the hands a handprint ahead of the shoulders, and then coming to lift the knees, finding yourself in a plank pose. If it's too much off of the knees, come back down on towards the knees. But essentially we want to be pushing up through the hands, creating a kind of variation of cat pose through the upper back. If you are lifting the knees, think about sending the heels towards the back of the room, finding that length, gazes down towards the mat. Finding a round of breath here. And then we're going to think about finding some activation here. So think about dragging your hands towards your feet and vice versa. And you might start to immediately notice that the legs turn on, that the legs turn on, the stomach turns on, the upper back turns on. Maybe even a little shake of the body here. And come to lower the knees if they're not already. Just taking a moment to maybe come off the hands. So we're going to take that one more time and then we're going to add on ever so slightly. So come to lift the knees, finding that plank pose. And start to once again think about finding that activation. So you want to be dragging the hands back towards the feet and dragging the feet up towards the hands. And then think about tearing the mat in half. So you're sending the hands out towards the edges, feet out towards the edges. Whoo! Fire! And then lower the knees back down, walk the hands back towards the body, and come to sit over the top of the heels. Now, if those cues doesn't necessarily land or make complete sense to you, just know the sensation you're looking for is, so when I say tearing the mat in half, you want to think about pushing the hands out. They're still staying in the place that they are, so the hands essentially stay there, but you're thinking about ripping the mat in half, so you would be pulling the hands away from one another, and that will help to find some engagement and some tone within the body. So when you're in plank, we're thinking about pulling the hands back, pulling hands forward, and pulling them outwards. And that will just cultivate a different level of activation within the body in a plank pose. It's not easy. However, it builds a decent amount of tone and strength within the body. Beautiful work, guys. So finding that plank pose one more time. And then bending the knees, lifting the hips up and back, coming to find downward facing dog. Taking a round of breath here. Maybe pedaling out the feet. Nice generous bend in the knees, allowing the chest to come more towards the thighs. And then slowly walking your way towards the top of the mat, coming to find forward fold. Allowing the head and neck to hang heavy. Taking your variation of forward fold. And then on your next breath, allowing the chin and chin to be tucked in towards the chest, arms to hang heavy. Coming up to stand, rolling up, chin is the last thing, head is the last thing to come up. Circling the arms up nice and wide. Palms might meet and then draw them down through heart center. Bring the hands beside the body for Tadasana. And then just taking a moment here in Tadasana, maybe just to soften through the knees. Take a few little microscopic or big bounces here. Maybe you bring that into the shoulders, maybe that's into the legs, maybe it's into the ribs. Just have some energetic bounce here. Using the breath, really feeling the feet firm into the foundations beneath you. And then come to find some stillness. Maybe close down the eyes or take a soft gaze. And with the eyes closed or open, start to shift your weight ever so slightly forward towards the toes. Come slightly backwards on towards the heels, maybe toes lift. And then take your body over towards the right, coming onto the right side of the foot, over towards the left side. And then coming back through center. And coming to notice what there is to notice here. Where do you stand most? Is it into the toes, into the heels? What points of the body do you feel turned on most? Is it the calves, the quads? I'm not attaching any judgment, we're just simply observing how our body responds. And then coming to find your center point, grounding down through the feet. Maybe you take a moment to visualize from the top of your head, from the crown of the head, a line that goes all the way through the midline of the body, down the inside of the legs to the big toe. And come to open up the eyes. If you've closed down the eyes, circling the arms up towards the sky, palms might meet, draw them down through heart center, rolling all the way down, coming to find forward fold. Coming to find your halfway lift, flat back, gaze down towards the mat. And come to fold forward, frame the feet, step the right foot back and then the left foot. Finding yourself in that plank pose. It's about finding that activation, dragging the feet towards the hands towards feet, feet towards hands, and think about tearing that mat away. And then come to lift the hips up and back for downward facing dog. Slowly walk your way towards the top of the mat, finding that ragdoll position. Allow the head and neck to hang heavy, arms to hang heavy, rolling up slowly, piece by piece, circling the arms up wide, palms might meet, drawing them down through heart center. Taking that again, circle the arms up wide, draw them down through heart center, fold over the top of the thighs. Find your halfway lift. Frame the feet, step the right foot back, left foot back. Finding that activation, putting feet towards hands, hands towards feet. Gaze is down towards the mat, doming through the upper back, finding that push away from the mat mechanism. Bending the knees, lift the hips up and back, down dog. Taking a round of breath here. And then walking your way towards the top of the mat, finding forward fold. Ragdoll variation, allowing the head and neck to hang heavy, the arms to hang heavy. Generous bend in the knees, coming up to rise, chin in towards the chest, allow the arms to hang heavy until you come up to stand. Circle the arms up wide. Palms meet, draw them down through heart center, Tadasana. Taking that one more time, circle the arms up wide, palms meet, draw them down, bend the knees, fold over the top of the thighs, halfway lift. Come to frame the feet, step the right foot back, left foot back. Finding that plank activation, draw the hands towards feet, feet towards hands. And then think about ripping the mat away from one another, pulling the hands to the outer edges of the mat, the feet towards the outer edges of the mat. Bend the knees, bring the knees up, hips up and back for downward facing dog. Slowly walk your way towards the top of the mat, finding ragdoll pose. Allow head and neck to hang heavy, arms to hang heavy. Chin in towards the chest, arms are hanging heavy. Chin is the last thing, head is the last thing to come up. Circle the arms wide, palms might meet. Draw the hands through heart center, Tadasana. Take a round of breath here. Once again, think about finding that center. Maybe taking some rocks backwards and forwards, side to side. Before settling on in, noticing the points of connection. Noticing which toes connect first. What side of the foot feels heaviest to the mat? Is it the inside or the outside? What part of your heel feels connected the most? And then when you're ready, come to send the hands up towards the sky, palms might meet. Draw them down through heart center, bend the knees, fold over the top of the thighs. Come to find halfway lift. And come to frame the feet, step the right foot back and then the left foot. Finding yourself in plank, knees can be down or up. Coming to lower all the way down. Rolling the shoulders back and down, send the hands towards the back of the room. Palms are facing the body, bring the toes to join one another, legs are together. On your next breath, come to lift the head, lift the chest, lift the legs for locust, Shalabhasana. Gaze is down. And then coming back down, bringing the hands beside the rib cage, pushing up into tabletop. And then coming to place the weight into your right hand, coming to kickstand the right foot out towards the right side, coming to turn on towards the right hand, and the left foot is coming towards the side as we then extend the left arm up towards the sky for a side plank, a modified side plank. Gaze can be down towards the right hand or up towards the left hand. So really think of finding some length through that left arm so we're not dumping all the way into our right. Maybe sending that left arm above the top of the mat so it's reaching bicep to ear, finding some length through the side body. Then come to send it back up towards the sky. And if it's there for you, maybe you might like to come to float that left leg. Flex the toes towards the face, towards the body, send the heel towards the room. Maybe you come to bend the knee and you come to turn the hip so it's angled outwards. So imagine you're coming to find a tree pose, a variation of tree pose. Maybe you place that left foot down towards the mat so the knee is now directionally facing the back of the mat. You might explore with rocking backwards and forwards here and just seeing how that feels within your hips. And then coming to place the left hand back down, coming to turn the body, the torso, to face the mat. When you're ready, coming up to find plank pose, maybe knees down or knees up. Taking a round of breath here, and then lowering all the way down towards the mat. Rolling shoulders back and down, sending the arms back behind you, palms facing the body, drawing the legs into one another. Lift the head, lift the chest, lift the legs for locust. Coming to lower all the way back down, bringing the hands back beside the body, pushing up into tabletop. And from tabletop, bringing the weight into the left hand, maybe taking it head on out ever so slightly. Kickstanding that left foot out towards the left side of the mat. Maybe the toes stay tucked as we come to turn on towards the left side of the body. Right arm sends up towards the sky and the right leg stretches towards the back of the mat. So the foot is still down on towards the mat here. Gaze can be up or down. Maybe you explore with sending that right arm forward, reaching it towards the front of the room, finding a side body stretch before sending it back up towards the ceiling. Next, you might like to add on by coming to extend that right leg so it's in line roughly with the hip, flexing the toes to find that sense of engagement. Come to bend the knee and then start to angle the hip as if we're turning to plant the foot on towards the mat, the knee is coming up to face the ceiling. Maybe you then come to either hover here or you come to place that right foot down towards the mat so the knee is still facing the back of the mat or thereabouts. And maybe you take some rocks backwards and forwards. Maybe you're exploring with the arm, moving the arm into some circles, backwards and forwards. And then coming to place that right hand back down, turning the torso, the full body to face back down. And then maybe taking a moment in child's pose, extending the arms out long or sending the arms back behind you for a round of breath. And when you've done your final round of breath, coming back up through tabletop, and you found yourself into tabletop, bring the knees together to touch, hands are underneath the shoulders or thereabouts. Maybe you take that right hand out ever so slightly to find a little bit more of a supportive base, and then take that right leg back behind you, toes are tucked to begin with. Maybe you come to tuck the left toes if you want a little bit of balance, a little bit of support here. And then come to extend that left arm, out in front of you. So we're bringing the bicep towards the ear essentially. On your next breath, come to extend that right leg back behind you so it's hovering about hip height, or it might be lower. Just noticing, like, if you do take it up higher, like, what does that do? Does it essentially compromise your central position? If you find in balance hard here, maybe think about bringing the tongue to the roof of your mouth to find a sense of engagement through the deep front line. On your next breath, we're going to draw it all in through center, either bringing elbow in towards the knee or hand in towards the knee, curling like a cat and then re-extending. Taking that 2 more times, either hand to knee or elbow to knee, re-extending. Working with that balance here, taking 1 more round. On the extension, pausing here for a round of breath. Bringing the hand back down towards the mat, coming to find both hands down, tucking the toes, and then coming to lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Taking a round of breath here. Coming to ripple all the way forward, finding yourself in plank pose, maybe lowering the knees or staying with the knees lifted. Coming to lower all the way down towards the mat, rolling the shoulders back and down, sending the hands towards the back of the mat, drawing the legs into one another. On your next breath, come to lift the head, lift the chest, lift the legs for locust. Really sending the energy through the legs, through the hands, finding that extra little lift here. Coming to place the hands beside the rib cage, pushing into the hands, coming up to find tabletop. Lifting the hips up and back. On your next breath, come to tiptoe your way towards the top of the mat, finding forward fold. Coming up to rise, circling the arms up nice and wide. Draw the hands through heart center, Tadasana. So we're going to explore coming to hover the leg, and there'll be a couple of options that you can add on during your practice. So I should have said at the beginning, the other alternative as well to have here on this practice is to have a strap close by or something that resembles a strap. So when you are ready, come to find your Tadasana pose and just focus on that central point again. Maybe even focus on, like I was just speaking about a moment ago, bringing the tongue to the roof of the mouth. So pushing that up can sometimes help to activate a lot of our core activation in terms of balanced postures, maybe you explore with and without. So bringing the hands up towards the sky, start to come to lift the right heel off of the floor. So essentially you're on your right tippy toes. The left standing leg, start to bear some weight into this. Maybe find a little bit of buoyancy, some little bouncing like we did earlier. And then come to straighten the leg, but still find that micro bend in the knee. Firming down through all the left toes, left heel. And then come to hover the right leg. If you notice straight away that there is some microscopic wobbles or some big wobbles, just explore with what that feels like here. So like explore falling in and falling out. That's also the beauty of learning about balance, is learning how to fall. So once you've found the exploration, maybe then go on to explore bringing the tongue to the roof of the mouth and exploring if that helps, if that makes any change whatsoever. And send the hands up towards the sky. And then there's a couple of options. You can either stay here, or you can bring the right hand towards the right knee. And we're going to take it out towards the side. So this is one option. We're staying here, really grounding down through that left leg, switching on the glutes, the calf, the quad, listening to the movements that is happening with our legs and letting our mind autocorrect. And the next option is that you can come to either bring the peace fingers towards the big toe, and you can extend that leg out towards the side. Maybe the left hand comes out towards the other side to counter the balance. If that's not working for you, you can always incorporate the strap. So you can bring the strap out underneath that right foot, take it into the right hand, and then help to send it out towards the right side. You've got the strap to create that length there for you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be horizontal, it can be slightly down to the floor, just exploring with your range of movement and your range of balance. And then still maintaining that hover of the leg, wherever it might be. Can you bring it back through centre? So the knee is now hovering in front of the body, and very, very slowly and mindfully come to lower the right knee down to meet the left. The right foot, sorry, to meet the left. Ah, beautiful work. Take a round of breath here. Just coming to notice what there might be to notice between the right leg and the left leg now, if there is anything at all. On your next breath in, hands up towards the sky. Bring the palms down through heart center, coming to fold over the top of the thighs. Come to find your halfway lift, gaze down towards the mat, flat back. Come to frame the feet, step the right foot back and the left foot. Come to lower the knees, finding yourself in tabletop, bring the knees to one another, together, and then sending that left leg back behind you. Coming to tuck the toes under. Maybe taking that right hand out a little bit wider. Coming to send the right arm out ahead. So you bring in the bicep towards the ear roughly or thereabouts. And then you might tuck the right toes under and then come to hover the left leg. Finding decent little balancing act here. And then on your next breath, we're going to draw the elbow in towards the knees or the hand in toward the knees. Just using your variation. You can also keep the hand and knee down and just drag along the mat if that's also working for you. Taking any modifications along the way. Curling and expanding. Using the breath to guide you. When you've done your final round, coming to find tabletop. And then when you're ready, take the hands of handprint ahead of you, come to tuck the toes under, lift the hips up and back for downward facing dog. Coming to ripple forward, finding plank, maybe knees come down. lowering all the way down towards the mat. Sending the hands back behind you, reaching the fingertips all the way towards the back of the room, drawing the toes and the feet and the legs all into one another. Come to lift the head, lift the chest for locust. Allowing the breath to help you lift here. Gaze is down, neck is long. Bring the hands back beside the rib cage, pushing up into tabletop. Lift the hips up and back for downward facing dog. Taking a round of breath here. And then coming to tiptoe your way towards the top of the mat, finding forward fold. Coming all the way up to rise, circling the arms up wide, palms might meet, draw them down through heart center. Bring the hands beside the body for Tadasana. And start to think about bearing weight into this right leg now. Think about the right toes, the points that they're connecting, the right heel, and then start to become light through this left foot. So coming onto the left toes, lifting the left heel. And then sending the hands up towards the sky maybe as the knee comes up. Left knee comes up in line with the left hip or thereabouts. Maybe it's a bit lower, maybe it's a bit higher. Just staying here with the balance, exploring once again, maybe falling in, falling out, becoming aware and consciously aware of those little microscopic movements through the ankle, maybe through the knee. And then there's a couple of options here to explore once again. So you can either stay where you are, practicing your balance, your knee in front of you, or you can take hold of the left leg with the left hand and gently guide it out towards the side. Right arm can come out to help counterbalance. You can even have the thigh, the hand, the forearm underneath the thigh also. That's one option. The other option is from your hovering leg, hovering knee in front of you. You can come to place a strap around the ball of the foot. Bring the strap in towards the hands and then come to extend out towards the left side. And just noticing that not every side feels the same. One side might feel more stronger than the other. Try not to attach judgment to it, just simply observing what side might need a little bit more love and care and attention. And then the other option is from your hovering knee, taking your big toe with your peace fingers and then coming to slowly, gently take it out towards the side. Maybe even having a microscopic or a big bend in that knee as you extend and let the right arm out towards the other side to help counterbalance. Wherever you are, taking a round of breath before gently guiding the knee back through centre for a moment of hover before coming to place the leg back down. Bring the hands beside the body for Tadasana. Taking a round of breath here. And then on your next breath, coming to lower yourself, bring yourself all the way down towards the mat. We're coming to face the long edge of the mat, coming to work with wide-legged fold. So with wide-legged fold, if you find that sometimes your hammies can be a little bit tight, sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of elevation through the hips. So if you've got a blanket or a little pillow, you can always come to sit on the edge of it. So you want to find a tilt essentially. So you don't want to be sitting on it, you want to be sitting on the edge of it so it helps to create a little bit of tilt and a little bit of space through the back of the legs for you. So once you've found that you've taken your legs out nice and wide, maybe removing any fleshy parts from underneath the sit bones, start to draw the feet towards you, to flex the toes, maybe the heels might hover and then allow them to soften. This might be where you want to stay in your wide-legged fold. But then you might like to bring the hands back behind you and maybe help to walk yourself forward ever so slightly. This might be where you want to stay. Another option of layer, you can bring blocks in, you can double stack or single stack and the forearms can come down, chin can come in towards the chest. If you're looking for more depth, you can bring forearms down. And if you're looking for even more, you can bring the chest down. Just working with your anatomy, with what is working for you. And then come to soften here, come to find your centre, your breath. And allow the breath to travel through the body to the points that you might notice feel a little bit more niggly than others maybe. Maybe closing down the eyes and visualising sending the breath to the points of the body that need it more than others. And take in a few more rounds of breath here. When you're ready, slowly coming up, bring the hands behind the back of the knees, leaning back, allowing the thighs to come in. Feet are planted on the mat, that hip width apart, and then bring the hands back behind you, taking a few windshield wipers through the legs here. If it feels good to pause on one side for a moment, invite that in. And then when you feel ready, we're all going to meet on our back. So coming to roll your way down towards the mat. When you're ready, draw the knees in towards the chest. Giving yourself a nice little hug, nice little squeeze here. And then on your next breath, come to release. Forearms around the front of the shins or the hands. And come to bend the knees. Send the feet so as if they were planting on the ceiling. So knees are drawing down towards the mat, towards the outside of the rib cage. Maybe the backs of the forearms or on the back of the thighs, helping to draw them down. Finding happy baby. So flexing the toes towards the face. Maybe the hands come up to the calves, or maybe they come up towards the outside of the feet. We're essentially drawing the back, the lower back down towards the mat. So don't really want the bum lifting off too far. If it is, maybe you release your grip ever so slightly. If it feels good for you, maybe you take some rocks side to side. Or maybe you're finding stillness. Maybe you might like to extend one leg long. Just taking any variation that's calling to you. On your next round of breath, I'm going to release the grip. I'm going to extend the legs long, taking the arms out beside the body. Coming to close down the eyes or take a soft gaze. Coming to find your final resting pose. Noticing each point of the body as it connects. Noticing the heels, the back of the legs, the back of the hips, the back body, the shoulders, and the arms, and the back of the head. Allowing the whole body to soften here. Anchoring yourself in the present moment, being your center. Coming to settle into your Shavasana. When it is time to close off the practice, I will guide you back to a seat. Slowly start to bring some movement into the fingers and the toes. And gently extending them, maybe the movement into the ankles, the wrists. Sending the arms up above the head, bringing the legs into one another, taking a full body stretch here. And then coming to roll over to one side for a round of breath. Before slowly coming up to find a seat. Taking a moment to maybe close down the eyes or find that soft gaze. And drawing the hands to heart center. Maybe allowing the shoulders to come up and roll back down. Taking an inhale through the nose. And then a big sigh out through the mouth. And drawing the thumbs energetically into the heart center, into the sternum. And bowing the head. Drawing it towards the palms in gratitude for your practice here today. It was a true honor to guide you from my heart to yours. And thank you ever so much. Hope you enjoyed your practice. I'd love to hear how you got on. Yeah, until the next time guys. Thank you.